Was there ever a time you're thankful the pandemic happened? What was the reason? Did you not see the freeways under lockdown? I will never not miss how light that traffic was. Was given the opportunity to keep my job, work from home, and move out of state. The only thing keeping me in my home state was my job, great pay, insane benefits, etc. So when they told me I could get out of Dodge and keep my spot with the company, I didn't even need to consider. Fucking absolutely. I am an English teacher and I have maybe 2 to 4 classes throughout the day. Before, I would have to travel to and from each class and maybe go home in between if there was time. I live in Bogota and it's a big city with no metro and the traffic sucks donkey balls. Now, all my classes are online. I've saved between 3 and 6 hours of travel time each day. It gave me a whole year to spend every day with my senior pup before he crossed the Rainbow Bridge. It gave me some time to think a lot about myself and where I was going, and I realized I was taking the wrong subject, trying to set myself up for a career I didn't want. Yes, I got to keep my son home from school the entire year. We homeschooled, and I spent so much more time with him. We did a lot of fun things during the day, the park, video games, etc., that we wouldn't have got to do otherwise. Also, I got an itch to start working out last summer and have lost almost 50 pounds. mRNA tech got fast-tracked and might help cure cancer. It made me realize how bad my relationship was. I hate comparing situations. Everyone struggles differently, but he didn't talk to me for the first 6 weeks of the lockdown because his stress was worse than mine. He was at his mom's with his brother, having her cook and clean and basically do everything for him while he played games all day. Meanwhile, I had just moved in my own flat, had no bed and very little furniture, no internet, and I was struggling to get hold of groceries, but despite all that, he had it worse. I realized that I needed to look after myself. When I woke up 5 minutes before my university classes, happened multiple times, edit. Thanks for the awards and upvotes. Even though I much prefer in person, it's always nice to look at the silver lining in things, smiley face. It's a small thing compared to all the horribleness that happened during the pandemic, but I did feel thankful. My 14-year-old dog tore her CCL the week before everything shut down. The vet said she wasn't a good candidate for surgery because of the risks associated with her age. We didn't know what to do. She couldn't put any weight on it at all. A few days later, I lost my job and was staying home all day. I spent a few days researching everything I could about dogs and ligaments, then I got to work. I designed a whole physical therapy routine for my dog and set the plan in motion. And it worked. Within 2 months, she was able to walk normally without a limp. Within 4 months, she was able to move around like she'd never been injured in the first place. I never would have been able to put in all the time with the physical therapy if I hadn't lost my job, so I can't help but feel a bit thankful. My dog is still around, happy and healthy. She just stole my sock and ran off into the yard. I love that troublemaker. My mom is 85 and in assisted living in a city 250 miles away. During lockdown, I started calling her every day at 11 a.m., and we became closer than we have ever been. She became a close friend. That is quite a gift. She's become a lot more confused lately and is slipping into dementia now. I'm sorry her last coherent year had to be during COVID lockdown, but I am so glad we had our daily chats. We still do, but she is fading now. Love you, Mom. First child born right at the beginning of it. Being off from work with benefits for months longer than expected gave me so much more time with my child and wife than I ever would have had. Time spent like that is impossible to replicate later. Yes. 1. I got to know my daughter better. We are closer than ever. 2. I got to know my spouse better. He moved out. Got braces but wore a mask face with mask, and now I'm CN Formbali with my braces. Stimmy checks cleared my CC debt. I proposed to my girlfriend on March 20th. She said yes. Lockdown happened the following day, so she moved in with me into a small 2-bedroom apartment. That Wednesday, I got laid off from a job I desperately wanted to quit. Since I got laid off, and didn't quit, I got enhanced unemployment, which basically meant I got a raise. A couple months later, we got married. Due to COVID regulations, we could only have 10 people at the wedding. which kept the guest list small for a very good reason that everyone understood, and kept our wedding expenses very low. Getting married allowed me to get on my wife's insurance, which was much less expensive than getting it on my own. A little over a month later, I started a job related to pandemic response, which paid very well. I made more during the second half of 2020 than in all of 2019. This income allowed me to save up enough to put a decent down payment on a house, with historically low interest rates. In December, I got another, more stable, job, which required me to work from home. This job pays about the same as the one I had before the pandemic, and it's for a much better company with many more opportunities for advancement. TLDR. Before, single, renting, in debt. After, married, homeowner, with comfortable nest egg. I was able to give birth without my family harassing me in the room. They harassed me anyways, but at least I could enjoy my baby in peace. Before I was about to get expelled for poor attendance, but thanks to the pandemic attendance didn't matter and I was able to graduate. Pre-pandemic traffic I commuted like 2.5 hours of commute time one way. During the height of the pandemic I think once I saw like 7 cars total on my commute. My drive was reduced to like an hour and 10 minutes. It was odd to have the turnpike practically to myself. Also because my job has to be done on site, during the pandemic a couple more job openings opened up near me. I got a job near me and don't have to worry about post-pandemic work traffic because my job is 10 minutes away from my house. I had more of an opportunity to play video games. I got to meet my best friend. He once replied to a post or something and asked if we wanted to play some games together. He was living in the US while I was in Germany, but our schedules worked really well together and we got to spend a lot of time together. Over time he and I each introduced some other friends and played different games, and now we formed our own friend group. He just recently moved back to Finland and now we play a little less together, but I'm really glad to have met him. We are also planning to meet up sometime this or next year with the other guys from our group since we only know each other from gaming together. More time with my kids and the wife. Also allowed me to spend more time with my brother during his last months before he died of cancer. Time I otherwise would have spent working. I am thankful for the quarantine, not the pandemic. I used to think I was introverted until I was left alone with my thoughts for far too long and realized how much I need social interaction in my life. The fact that I don't have to constantly overwhelm myself with the grind of life. Sure, it meant that I can't go anywhere as conveniently, but I felt like the world slowed down to a pace which I was comfortable with. I know it will be buried, but I really wanted to tell this somewhere, so here we go. I am very anxious. Most probably have social anxiety, but I didn't go to a doctor for a diagnosis. Anyway, in the autumn of 2020 I started high school, and none of my previous classmates were in my class. At the beginning, I had to go physically to school, and even if just half the class was present, we were split in 2 halves and one group went to school and the other took online classes, switching every week. I would come home exhausted. It was a lot of social interaction and new people, so a lot of anxiety, and it was too much. Luckily, I only went for 3 weeks until the COVID situation got worse and we switched to full online. This helped a lot by taking away anxiety-inducing factors like how I look, how I speak and things like that. Also, the interactions, both with teachers and classmates on Discord, didn't feel so direct, so they produced less anxiety. It was also easier to be in a conversation but not saying anything online than physical. One day, a group that formed added me on their Discord, which only contained about 15 people of my class, because they needed one more player in an Among Us game and knew I was a nice guy, probably because I also shared me homework with people from there a few times. Since then I started to enter their calls and slowly relax around them. After a few months, I could finally feel comfortable around them, and I actually felt like, hey, I actually made some friends. I also went out with them outside a few times, while we weren't in quarantine, which helped me develop even more. Overall, the quarantine and spending time online allowed me to take everything slower and gave me time to feel comfortable around these new people and in these new situations. And here I am now, with only 1 week of school left, as a totally different person than I was 9 months before. I made friends, I grew more social, I kinda discovered my clothing taste, I am still in the process of figuring this out, but I am getting somewhere, and I grew my self-esteem. Sure, COVID wasn't the only thing that helped me achieve this. It took a lot of effort, motivation, hope and support from my sister, but I can't deny that little things like spending time online rather than physical, or a silly game like Among Us helped me start my growing process. There is still more to be done. My development isn't over yet and I still have things to work on, but I am so proud of myself, of the person that I am growing into, and I am so thankful to all the people that helped me get here. If you are in a very low spot in life, remember that seemingly small things can butterfly effect into a huge avalanche of events that positively impact your life. All you have to do is wait to see what tomorrow will bring. I want to end this with a lyric from my favorite artist, that I might also tattoo on myself or something. Lol, hopeless changes over time. Ever since it started, people message me more often. I don't really have any close friends, and so the few messages I get are my entire social life. So many times. Before the pandemic, I constantly called in sick at work due to a metabolic disorder I have, as well as some mental struggles. Once we started working from home, I was able to start dealing with my health problems much better, so I haven't had to call in sick at all. Also, I have started a few new hobbies during the pandemic, playing the violin and singing, and I now have a new job. That's a lot better than the job I had at the start of the pandemic. Lastly, I have been able to reconnect with some friends I hadn't really been in touch with before the pandemic. So, overall, this pandemic has actually been good to me. There was a brief period when there was no traffic. Working from home has drastically improved my confidence at work. I didn't have to deal with the social anxiety of going to work, interacting with people, feeling like an imposter. Even my husband noticed a change in the sound of my voice when I'd be on work calls. I'm now slated for promotion this year. I've been dealing with a pretty bad anxiety disorder the past few years, started right before the pandemic. A year of lockdown has had its own difficulties, but not having to go to events or leave my house much was helpful. My husband lost some of his work, so he was able to be home more to help out with the kids and house. I was able to pursue counseling and medical care with his help. We were a homeschool family already, but when the neighborhood parents let their kids take the rest of the year off during the first round of lockdowns, we followed suit. That big break was really healing for our family and allowed us to re-examine our approach to education at home, which led to us finding a really great school rhythm and flow. We're thriving now as a family. I'm seeing a therapist and she's helping me reintroduce myself to the outside. I'm honestly really nervous now that things are opening up again, and it's scary out there. Oh well. Because of the pandemic, Australia's top art universities in big cities had a huge decrease in international students, and hundreds of apartment complexes were empty and desperate. It's safe to say there wasn't a lot of competition. This means a lot to me since I lived in a very small, barely populated town, and I would likely go unnoticed or prioritized less over international students. I had the opportunity to go to my dream uni and get a steal of an apartment lease with my partner. Though sometimes I feel like I'm undeserving and feel ashamed of ever taking advantage of the borders being closed. I've been able to understand my newly diagnosed ASD son and what his challenges are with regards to school so much better than I understood it when he was in school full time. I never wanted to homeschool my kids, but doing online school for the last school year has been informative. I think it's going to help me advocate for him so much better than if we hadn't had this experience. It's also been completely out of the norm and interesting to have our whole family home, husband working from home, kids homeschooling, and have no outside family demands on us due to isolation protocols. It hasn't been a 100% great experience, but it has been an experience. Working from home. Yes, I'm a major introvert, and for a year and a half I didn't have to make up an excuse as to why I wasn't attending something I was invited to. The pandemic gave me the time to stop going to church and reevaluate my whole belief system. Turns out I was in a cult that I had been in my whole life and devoted my whole life to. Needless to say, I GTFO and am now a free-thinking individual, not a programmed robot. I don't think I would have given myself the time to research if I didn't suddenly have a lot of time on my hands and churches were closed for months. I moved in with my boyfriend at the beginning of March 2020 and we were forced to sink or swim with our relationship because we were suddenly both home all of the time in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had to make a lot of fast life changes. He had to quit his job and find a work from home position because I am high risk, for example, and it brought us a lot closer together as a couple. We're planning to get married after the pandemic. Smiley face. My abusive stepdad caught COVID last April and died a really horrible death. I've been free for over a year now and everything is so much better. I'm grateful that the pandemic happened because it allowed me to live happier than before. My boys, the best beagle to ever beagle and an amazing orange tabby cat, the Orange Menace, were both elderly when I went work from home. I feel incredibly lucky that I kept my job and got to spend the last year and a half of their lives spending every day with them. I lost my beagle in January at the ripe old age of 19 and a half and my cat passed from cancer in May. I am so grateful for the time I had with them. Fuck yes, I had a taste of remote working and I'm not going back to the office. Frankly, I do 3x as much while I actually work 3x less. I can concentrate on NY work. I can spend hours coding without anyone saying, let's go grab some coffee, or let's go smoke, or dozen other excuses we used to use to not work. And best thingness, I no longer have to affect morning bullshit meeting where site manager just talks. She really likes the sound of her own voice. Okay, without going into too much, the week lockdown happened, my ex moved out. It was a bad relationship, but I was in denial. So now I was locked inside, with a lot of big feelings and nowhere to go. It forced me to confront myself, a lot of my own mental issues and a lot of my own trauma. I hated it, resisted it and fought it. Eventually though I learned to work on myself slowly, and I don't think that would have happened without lockdown. My daughter was born last year. Being able to work from home for a year has given me an opportunity to spend so much time with her that I don't think most fathers have. It gave me time away from school to be admitted into the hospital for more than a month and it saved my life. Yes, it made me slow down and re-evaluate what I was doing with my life. I cut out people who were dragging me down, and reconnected with old friends through group Zoom calls. Changed jobs, started taking care of my body and lost 30 pounds. Found a new hobby. I do wish I made these changes years ago, instead of waiting for a global health crisis to kick my butt into gear. Edit. Thank you to everyone who took the time to read my comment, and to those who responded. Reading all your responses truly made my day. It's reinforced that we're all in this together, even if we're physically apart, doing the best we can. Thanks for watching. See you later.